Alrighty, Shane. So Shane is COO of the Innocent Lives Foundation and is here to give a practical application of OSINT in a dark world. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you. So I wanted to start out this morning, you see it on your screen with the trigger warning. We're going to talk about some difficult subjects, and if you feel for any reason that this may not be for you, please don't hesitate to head over to another track. You can always catch up with us on our Discord channel, the Innocent Lives Foundation here, or go ahead and you can reach out to us another way, and we will be more than happy to have a conversation with you. So while some of the information that we're going to discuss is shocking and it may raise some fear, that's not the goal of our conversation this morning. We want to raise our awareness up and get us all talking as a community and also those families. And then within this group at layer 8, I want to challenge you to think about how you might be able to use your skill sets, not only to help the Innocent Lives Foundation, but other organizations that are here that are doing other great works right now. So begin thinking about those things. The other thing that I want to challenge you to do is to think about how you feel during this conversation. So at the Innocent Lives Foundation, if you're not familiar with us, we unmask or we identify child sexual abusers who think they're anonymous and they're committing crimes against our children. And we do so in a way that allows law enforcement to take our research and then to take action on behalf of these children. So again, we're going to discuss this case internally. We call it the case of Baby Doe. I want to again ask you to be aware of your feelings and maybe challenge some assumptions that you're bringing into this particular conversation and to see if you still have those same assumptions when we leave. So a few months ago, while we were searching for case leads, we ran across an online forum with a thread that was dedicated to the abuse, the sexual abuse of very young children. Now, this is always shocking. This is something you're never going to get used to. There was a forum user, though, amidst all this filth and everything that was going on, there was one user who literally just like reached out and just demanded our attention. So in this forum post, he was claiming to be a new father from the United States. He was looking to exchange child sexual abuse material. He was also looking to produce child sexual abuse material, and he was looking to meet people locally. So right in his own neighborhood, he wanted to try to meet people to do this. And if all of that were not enough, he was offering to use his own baby in the production of these materials. So as you can likely imagine, we started the unmasking process almost immediately. Now, one of our core tenets at the Innocent Lives Foundation is that we will not release any material that may possibly educate a predator. So in this conversation, we're not going to tell you how we did this unmasking, but I want to encourage you as an OSINT practitioner to think through this. What would you do next? In other words, how would you attack the unmasking of a pedophile? When you're looking at the forum thread, imagine you literally start pulling threads. You start looking for any hints, any opportunities that would give you an idea on how to begin building a profile of this person. An example, let's say in the thread, he's having a more casual conversation. He says, I'll be back. I'm going to grab a soda. Now, to those of us who are not familiar with OSINT, that may mean nothing. But immediately, what went off in your mind? He said soda. He didn't say, I'm going to grab a pop, and he didn't say, I'm going to grab a Coke. Minnesota. That gives me an idea of what part of the country he may live in or where he was raised. So you begin taking all of these little bits and pieces and you start pulling at all of these little threads. And pretty soon you're able to start getting an idea of who this person may be. Now, you begin cross-referencing this idea to other common sites and apps. So I know a lot of times we have a tendency to think, well, this all happens on the dark web. But no, think Instagram, think Twitter, Reddit, Facebook. So it wasn't too long, and in this case, we had what could be a real-life identity for this person. So what would you do as a next step? Well, the short answer is that we doubled down. We got really, really busy, and we started digging into public records, and that's likely what you would do to begin seeing what could be pulled together. You may also have considered putting together a timeline to try to confirm different details. So the online forum user, do we see timeline items matching up with the person who we think is that real life ID? Maybe addresses or at least neighborhoods, email accounts, types of employment, interest. And in this particular case, what do you think would be a winner? In other words, what do you think would be one of the things that would really show us that we had the right person matched up to that user form? Well, how about the confirmation of a baby in his house? So we dug in, we dug deeper, and the research revealed a 40-year-old man living a double life. He appeared kind, he appeared decent. His friends and his family had no idea, and the whole time he was hiding behind a mask out on the internet. So once we had a conclusion, we were firm, we had his identity confirmed, then we take that case, we took the whole thing, handed it off to law enforcement. So now law enforcement can help protect that innocent life of that baby. So this brings us, there's a bunch of questions. We could probably spend 3 or 4 hours discussing this particular case and all the lessons that we could learn. But let's talk about assumptions. Who do you think the predator typically is in situations with children? Take a look at the slide and the donut. You see 3 different options: family, acquaintance, and stranger. 7%. Who do you think that is? That's the stranger. If you're of my generation, we grew up with stranger danger, and that's all we ever heard. And yet 93% is going to be friends and family that's doing this, and it's rarely discussed. It's rarely talked about. So this is why we feel very strongly that you must be teaching your kids. You must have kind, frank, age-appropriate conversations with them. And I know it's uncomfortable, but we don't care if it's uncomfortable. We have to do it. We have to learn how to do it and then make it an ongoing conversation. By the way, the 34% is family, 59% is friends or acquaintances. That's the way these statistics lay out. One other thing I want to hone in on just for a moment. The common name is child pornography, and in fact, that's the legal name for it. But groups like the Innocent Lives Foundation and others, we choose to use CSAM instead of child pornography. Well, why? CSAM stands for Child Sexual Abuse Material, and it reflects more accurately what is happening. Every single time there is a photo or a video or this is taking place, being streamed, whatever the technology is, there's a crime taking place and a child is being abused. So CSAM is what you'll hear me use throughout the rest of the conversation. So let's ask one more question about the Baby Doe case. When you were going through this, did you feel that the case was unusual? I wish it was. Unfortunately, the numbers don't tell us that it is. So this screen that you're looking at is from a talk given by Julia Cordua from Thorn. And it is based on a paper that was done by Google, NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and Thorn. It was released last year. Take a look at those numbers for just a few moments. This is child sexual abuse material as reported in only the United States. So global problem, small reporting, just the United States. In 2018, there were over 45 million pieces of this material reported. But look at the year before, 2017, only 20 million. Now I say only 20 million because that's more than half of what's taken place the next year. That slope is just flying uphill. Now, as a person who's interested in technology, look at that line going flat for a long time, and then all of a sudden we see it just shoot straight up. Can you think of what may have started taking place in 2015 that may have edged that line up? Tor. What about 2016, especially 2017? Simplified video sharing. We see a definite connection between the availability and the ease of using technology and this happening. So we don't have numbers for 2019 yet, but we can take a look at the graph, and if it does what we think it's going to do, it's going to be another horrendous number. And early indications are that because of COVID at the beginning of this year, they're already saying that we're looking for another 2 times rise over what was reported. So it's going, it's just bad news that's in front of us. So let's take a look at this slide. And this is by far the hardest slide in the deck. Once we get through this deck, it will be easier to take. This was from a study done in 2016, and it allows us to see not just the number, so not the 45 million type number of CSAM, but more importantly, what those percentages are, what that CSAM may look like. So you see a bunch of numbers on the left-hand side, the 53%. What does that represent? That 53% represents the amount of CSAM, child sexual abuse material, that the children in it were under 10 years of age. Think about that for a few minutes. It's obscene if you do the math. It's horrendous. The 2% number, that's the number, that's the percentage of children in this material that is under 2 years old. And the 28% number. 28% of all that material was of rape and sexual torture. So this is reflecting what the world is that our children are growing up in when it comes to child sexual abuse material. Now, at this point, it would be very easy for us to think, well, a lot of those things must have been getting reported over and over and over. You know, they see the same image, and 1,000 people report that same image. Well, sadly, the 84% number represents images that were new content. They had never been seen before. 91% were the videos that had never been seen before. So sadly, this case of Baby Doe is not unusual in any way. So following through on that report from NCMEC, Google, and Thorn, they put out a paper. The paper was May of 2019. And the conclusion of that paper is this: absent new protections, in other words, if we don't do anything, if we don't come up with a better method of doing something about this problem, society will be unable to adequately protect victims of child sexual abuse. That's a hard pill to swallow. That's really tough to think about. There was a small study in Canada done a couple of years ago who interviewed the first generation of these children who have now become young adults. So they grew up with their life out on the internet and all of their abuse for people to see. It was a small study, 120-ish people. However, over 60% of those folks had attempted suicide. Now just think about the enormity of that conclusion, of these numbers that we're seeing, that we don't have a great way to derail this, and the effect that it's having on these young adults as they grow into adulthood. Think of the effect that could have on society as a whole. It's not encouraging. So the real question is, what direction do we take now? I mean, if they're right, what do we do? At the Innocent Lives Foundation, we firmly believe that as individuals, as families, and as organizations, our children deserve our absolute best, and we must be having good, solid, meaningful conversation with our children or any young ones that we have a responsibility to. We must have the difficult conversations. Think for a moment about when you were a child. How old were you when you got handed a device that you could communicate to the world with? But now you look and you see kids so young who are having phones or tablets or gaming systems put into their hands with the potential of people being able to talk back to them. We feel very strongly that if you're not talking to your kids, someone else will, and the odds are that their intentions are not going to be in your child's best interest. So how do you get started? As a parent or a responsible adult, what can you do to begin learning about this and how to learn how to have these types of conversations? We've put together a video to help you get started. The Innocent Lives Foundation has put it together. It's called Knowledge for Parents. It will give you an idea of what to expect, some ways that you can start conversations, and some of the principles behind how to do this, but is urgently important. And I would encourage you to please share this with anyone that you know. It's a free resource out there for you. So we've talked about different organizations, and it's obvious that this problem is huge. There's all types of different ways to begin attacking this, and some organizations are doing a great job. We've mentioned Thorn, we've mentioned NCMEC. You can think about using your OSINT skills to work with Trace Labs, for example. In fact, in this same track at 1 o'clock, we're going to hear from Cassandra and Caitlin from Badass about using OSINT to catch an online predator. So a lot of organizations that you can work with to do good with your superpower, with your special skill set as an OSINT practitioner. So just for a moment, let's just dive a touch deeper into the Innocent Lives Foundation. So I mentioned that there was a lot of range in this particular problem. And so the portion where the Innocent Lives Foundation has decided that we want to attack is not only in the prevention, so training parents and raising awareness, but also literally in the unmasking of these people who are hurting, actively hurting our children, or trading or producing or benefiting in any way from child sexual abuse material. Those are the guys we want to go after, and we want to get them turned into law enforcement. So our vision, this is our goal ultimately, to protect innocent children from those who supply and trade in child abuse material. Now this has to be likely the most boring slide you're going to see all day. I did that for a reason. We are a non-vigilante, private predator hunting organization. So what does that mean? It means we are not this guy. We are most certainly not these guys, and we are absolutely not these guys. So if you brought an assumption coming into this talk that you're leaning towards vigilantism, I would love to challenge you. You don't have to agree with us, but I would love to challenge you to watch our 2019 DEF CON talk entitled Why Vigilantism Doesn't Work. It can be found on the Innocent Lives Foundation website, and it can just be found by Googling it on YouTube. So what we're not going to do, we are not going to try to stop making the world a better place, despite the odds. We know the odds are incredibly stacked against us, but that's no reason to give up. In fact, of a group that had given up, I was told the story that they had decided that it was like trying to soak up the ocean with a sponge, and they got downhearted about it. But I want to take a different perspective, and this is why we keep going. For a moment, please imagine with me that you're 8 years old. You're 8 years old, and every day of your life, you're getting raped. You're getting abused. Now think about what your life must be like. And then all of a sudden, just one day it stops. Because that person, you have no idea why, but that person was removed from your world. That's our goal. If we can change the world that just one child lives in, we think all of our effort is worth it, and it is a win. Here are some numbers from us, from the Innocent Lives Foundation. In 2018, by the end of 2019, we were able to turn in 86 files and hand them over to law enforcement for law enforcement to take action on. So far this year in 2020, we've already eclipsed that. We're at 119 files this year. So that's 119 files so far that law enforcement is able to work with and take action and maybe just change the world that one that's being affected by, that kid lives in is being affected by these guys. And 2019, by the end, we've gone through a tremendous growth spurt, and we have ended up at 35 volunteers total at the end of 2019. In 2020, we were at 39. So at the moment, we're slowing our growth down a little bit. We're retooling more on the back end, and hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be able to begin accepting more and more volunteers and continue to scale out and grow. The 2019 was an incredible growth year for us, and so we're taking a step back, rearranging, and getting ready to make another run at growth again. So we just passed our 3-year anniversary, and our total running so far is 214 files that have been turned in to law enforcement. So a lot of other things that I would love to tell you about. For example, what is involved in volunteering when we begin to open that up again. Our 5 guiding principles. We mentioned one of them earlier, that we will never educate a predator. Also, the operational imperative to stay as anonymous as possible. How about the acronym TRUST that we as parents and responsible adults can use to talk with our children? Safety guides, and there's just a whole bunch more I would love to spend time talking with you about. So I think we're going to have just a moment for some questions. And also, I want to be sure that please continue our conversation over on Discord if you would like to do so. Most importantly, though, for everyone who's supporting us and all of the organizations that are represented here today, and especially to those of you who donated additional money to help us, thank you so much for helping us win.
I appreciate that, Shane. Thanks so much for that talk. It's so incredibly important, the work you're doing. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
All right, great. I have some questions. I think we have a minute or two. So one of the biggest questions that we see most often is, how can folks from the OSINT community help?
Yep, that is the question that we get the most. If you are, so right now we've got a little bit of a backlog built up of people volunteering, but if you do want to volunteer, go to our website, fill out the form, and we will take a look and see if there's a great fit. Most of our work actually is OSINT work, and so we're not diving deep into the dark web. What we're looking for primarily, though, is, are you a professional OSINTer? Is this what you do for your day job? And we're beginning to look for more dark web experience. Follow us on social media. It may sound silly, but raising awareness is tremendous. And of course, like every nonprofit in the world, please consider donating.
And what's the best way to approach local law enforcement to offer services if somebody, if an individual wanted to do that?
If we do work with local law enforcement, and so when they reach out to us, we will take on special cases, and then we will work within the scope of that case. I'm not sure I answered your question, though.
I think they're looking for how they should contact local law enforcement and public safety.
Oh, so if you go to our website, you will find information under the report a case, and it will give you directions on how to contact. But almost everyone in a case like this where the person is known, where they've already been identified, local law enforcement is the correct place to start. And then if you're not getting the help and the support you need, try to reach out to us. We'll see what we can do. But that has to be handled on an individual case-by-case basis.
All right, great. I think that's all the time we have. So thanks very much, Shane, for that. There's some folks posting with the hashtag for Shane in track 1. So if you have any other questions, Shane, that's probably a great place to look. Thanks so much.
I will do it. Thank you all very much.